Brock University acknowledges the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected with Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. Good morning, and welcome to this session of Business Breathers, a live webinar series hosted by Goodman Group at Brock University. My name is Abdul Rahimi, and it is a distinct pleasure for me to serve as the director of Goodman Group at Brock University. Goodman Group is a community-focused learning and development services provider that works to support professionals and businesses pursuing growth through professional development certificate programs, executive education, and consulting services. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to today's session. This webinar series aims to provide 4 to 5 minute breathers filled with insightful discussions on timely topics that are relevant to businesses and everyday lives, led by award-winning Brock University faculty and leading industry experts, encouraging thoughtful debates. Momentarily, I'll introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session, and thank you, first of all, for all of those who have registered and submitted their questions at the time of registration for this session. For those who are watching live, feel free to type in your questions at the chat feature, which is open now, and it's live. And while you're there, feel free to say hi to Jenny, who is moderating our chat feature. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's session, and that's Ted Mouradian. Ted has been an entrepreneur since 1973. He started his own real estate company at that point. He told me that he was 5 at that time.
I was.
In 1986, he wrote his first book on how to sell real estate, the 1 Hour Qualifier, that started him on the road to speaking and training. As a mature student in his mid-40s, Ted received his degree in sociology at Brock University, where he created the law of cooperative action. That is when his speaking and training career expanded to consulting companies and associations on how to integrate the law of cooperative action into their culture. Ted's professional achievements include learning at universities and colleges, as well as appearing on many radio and TV programs. He has written 4 books on the management of professionals and personal relationships, and has a weekly column advice column for workplace, and the column is Workplace Wisdom, which has appeared in several newspapers. For over 2 decades, Ted has put his proprietary and acclaimed cooperative action model into practice, helping to create long-term sustainable achievement goals. Ted's philosophy is most solutions are simple. We complicate them. Well, Ted, welcome.
Thanks, Abdul. It's good to be here.
Good to have you here. So tell us about the law of cooperative action, and which I understand you developed at Brock University.
Developed it here when I was doing my degree in sociology, and it was I was a class of 1 is what I did. But when I was doing the study over 4 years and trying to figure out why we get in conflict and how to manage conflict and how to do this journey as authentically your own self, I've watched, I guess, around, and everything seems to work. The whole world works together. We're all interconnected and interdependent. And as we're interconnected and interdependent, everything seems to fit and work when you look at the trees and the colors and everything, and the animals. And then you put us in there as human beings. And when we became sentient human beings, it got all screwed up. Because what happened is we started asking, how do I fit in? Where do I belong? And what happens to us as we're trying to figure that out is we're constantly being inundated by the outside forces that tell us, you can't do that, you don't belong there, you should have worn a different tie. All of those sorts of things that come into play. So as humans, what we were doing constantly every day, and I think all of the participants will agree. Every day, you're analyzing, how do I become authentically myself? Mm-hmm. Without harming the interconnectedness, or more importantly, allowing it to harm us. Mm-hmm. And that's basically where the law of cooperative action model comes into play, because what we've done is we've figured out how to navigate that and how to become authentically ourselves without harming the interconnectedness, or more importantly, allowing it to harm us.
So you are the co-founder of the and the president of the 2% Factor Incorporated, which is a local organization. And so 2% Factor, what is that about? And how do we see that in our lives?
The 2% Factor is an interesting concept that I developed, and it will stick with you now and with the participants forever, because it'll be with you. And I think we talked about this before. When we first read about it, you said, Ted, yes, it's there. So basically what happens, and I'm going to talk about people, a group of people that have been put on this planet to totally mess with us, to totally screw with our heads. If you're with somebody else during this session, please don't look around the room, because this is about Uncle Louie. This is who comes over at the holidays and ruins the holidays. This is about that bully boss. This is about that family member who every time they come into play, they get into fights. Well, I used to try and fight with them and try to change them and try to have them realize that, you know, they're wrong and I'm right. And then I realized they have a disease, and I've categorized that disease. The disease is called anal cranial inversion. I'll sort of give you a minute. And so you can't fight these people. You can't. They're set in their ways, and that's the way they are. Now, one day, I got inundated by them, and I thought they traveled in packs, right? So I checked with the local police, and I said, what's the percentage of society that will pick up a gun and shoot you no matter what the rules are? And they said about 2%. Now, since then, we've done contracts with the UN, and there was a psychologist at the UN, a psychiatrist, and he said, my 2% factor is basically right on, because women are basically 1% crazy, and men are 3% crazy. So again, this is the group of people out there who will cheat, steal, try to do anything they can to try to get an advantage over somebody else. Now, here's our problem. Well, I don't think it's a problem because we've solved it, but here's the issue. They run our entire planet. We have 100-kilometer-hour speed limits because 2% can't drive. We go through the beepy things in the store because 2% steal.
Right.
Kindergarten teachers can't hug their kids because 2% molest. You won't pick somebody on the side of the road because 2% mug. Every rule here at Brock, every rule in every organization, every rule in society is based on the 2% who screw up. So what we've developed is a way to neutralize that 2%. And you know, it's funny because you'll now start looking at the papers when something happens. Let's say someone gets killed at the corner of a street. 1,000 people go by that street. What's the first thing we do? We have to do a study. We have to go and we have to put a traffic light up there. Right. Instead of realizing that was a 2% incident. Now, quickly, I want to talk about the 2%ers, but I also want to talk about 2% as an incident, because they go. So a 2%er is a person who will never take responsibility for their actions. They are the people who, no matter what, it's all about them. Okay? That's the 2%er, the bully, the Trumps of the world, the people out there who, no matter what, you're fighting with them. Right? But there's also 2% incidents. Our days go along really well. Everything is good. And then we have that flat tire. Right. That flat tire becomes our 2%, but it's our 98%, because what we do is we make it our 98%. We tell everybody in the world about our flat tire. You out there will wear an outfit. 1,000 people will see you in that outfit. One person will come up to you in that outfit and say, you know, look a little fat in that, you'll throw it away. And so that's the 2% factor. So instead of realizing that it's this, we make it this. Right. So that's it. And again, we teach how to neutralize that. So 2% of people account for all of the grief that almost all of the grief that we're encountering and seeing on a day-to-day basis. So then how do we go about navigating those 2%? And is there ways of strategies that you might have developed or can suggest that we can minimize their impact on us? I think that one of the first things is to realize that that's who they are. Right. That you can't change them. Okay. You can't, so to argue with them and to try to have them understand your point of view doesn't work. Right. So how do you neutralize their effect on you? Right. 98% of the people will accept what you say and do. 98% of people say, yeah, I don't quite agree with that, Ted, but I understand it. And, you know, let's go have a beer. The 2%er will fight you all the way. Their way is the only way and the right way. So the idea is to try to neutralize some of the things that they do. The first thing to do is to validate their right to feel. Now that may sound weird because this is, why do I have to be nice to them? The first thing is to validate their right to feel, right? So if someone's coming and screaming at you and yelling at you about something and you're in a position where, let's say you're a clerk or you know, you're at the front counter of someplace, first thing you do is, I understand how you feel. Or I'm trying to understand how you feel.
Right.
Or help me understand how you feel.
So that now, empathetic.
Exactly. Empathy.
Right.
So the first thing is the temperature comes down slightly.
Right.
Right? There are people, oh, by the way, there are people who exhibit 2% behavior, but they're not necessarily 2%ers.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to throw that in.
Okay.
They're upset, they're mad, they're, you know, so when we lose it and someone says, you know, you just lost it, here's how your actions have affected me, not what you're doing wrong. That's another tool we use. Here's how your actions have affected me, not what you're doing wrong. 98% of the people will say, gee, Ted, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was angry.
Right.
You know, I apologize. The 2%er will never apologize. They'll give you half the peace sign and you'll understand how you have to deal with them from then on. But the point being is what we usually do is we don't validate the right to feel, first of all, because that'll tell you whether you're dealing with a 2%er or you're dealing with a person who's only exhibiting 2% behavior because they got upset. So the first thing you do is, wow, you seem really upset today. You know, you seem angry. I'm sorry you're feeling that strong. What can I do to help you? It'll come down. So again, the idea is never to fight, but to neutralize. That's the biggest thing, is to neutralize. And I mean, I've got them in my family. They're all over the place. And if I know someone is really, really looking for a fight, looking for an argument, I'll say, wow, you honestly believe that? Whatever that is, you honestly believe that? And they'll say, yes, I do. And that's the way it is. Wow. And then I'll turn to somebody else and say, so what do you think of the game last night? Because where's that going?
Right.
Conflict is this.
Right.
When you do this, there's no conflict.
Takes two to tango.
And the thing is, when we turn around and say, well, they made me get angry, they made me get upset, no one can make you do anything.
Right.
You have to take responsibility for your own behavior. So that's one of the main things that I would say is, don't fight them anymore. Neutralize their effect on you. Because in their mind, they believe they're right. That's the whole point.
Right. So what you're saying is that the remedy to those 2%, which, by the way, the manifestation of that exists in all of us. We all have that 2% within us, but it's when we get angry. And the distinction that you're making there, which I quite like, is although we all have that 2% trait, those who are only exhibiting the behaviors as opposed to those who are the 2%, the distinctive characteristics are around them owning it, apologizing for it, acknowledging the difference between intent and impact.
Exactly.
And it happens only 2% of the time of a relationship or interaction with that person. And then they realize, and there is that level of conscientiousness involved around that, and there's learning that perhaps comes out of that.
Yeah.
Whereas the other 2% is not quite the same.
They won't, they just will never.
Right.
Right? And the thing is, nowadays, we're having the world is in a very tough place right now. And there's a lot of tribalism going on. So what happens is that core 2%er will influence a group, because I've had some people say to me, Ted, it's more than 2%.
Right.
Well, what's happening is, I mean, let's use the bully. The bully gets 3 or 4 people around them because of fear, because of false information, et cetera, and they start exhibiting 2% behavior, but they're not necessarily 2%ers.
Right.
So they can be, they can change. They can have an awareness over their behavior and change, but the 2%er will not change. And that's always the difficult part. How do you discern someone who is exhibiting 2%, but is not,
right,
or someone who is true 2%? That's why in the session is called, why do I have to be nice to them? Because I'm nice to everybody until I find out exactly whether they're part of the 98% or they're 2%.
So the approach here is to be, what I hear you saying is that we need to be nice to them because we don't know who they are as a starting point, but also that's a way of neutralizing and also acknowledging our role in that conflicting component as well and peace.
Person could have just had a bad day, right? We don't know what happens when people meet us.
Sure.
Something could have happened. We just happen to be the person that they came in contact with. So instead of going, how dare you talk to me like that, and start the fight, wow, you look like you're having a bad day. How can I help you?
Okay. Perhaps our viewers might benefit from you taking us through, so we're all going to exhibit that, taking us through what are some of the steps that you would take and strategies so you talked about neutralizing, but dealing with individuals who we may not know necessarily or know for sure that they are part of the 2%, because if they are the 2%, well, that's the way they are. What do we do with them? But what about the remaining other 98% of individuals who exhibit that 2%? Are there differences in the way that you would approach them, interact with them?
Not really. I've developed this thing called the 6 I wills. It's part of the cooperative action because there's 6 tenets in the law of cooperative action. And of course, we don't have enough time to go near that, right? So the 6 I wills are basically, I will celebrate your right to be you. I will do my best not to harm you, number 2. Number 3, I will tell you how you've affected me, not what you're doing wrong. So my boundaries. Number 4, I will come from a place of if I can, I will. Now that means that even if you did me dirt earlier, I'm still going to do my best to help you, but I will never lose my sense of self. That's the broadened part of that. Number 5 is I will do everything based on mutual trust and respect. Okay? And an important one, number 6, I will walk away and let it go. So even if yesterday you were having a bad day and did something to me, that's not how we're going to deal today. Because if I'm nice to you on a regular basis, now, don't get me wrong, I'm very assertive and very in control. If you're someone who's going to take advantage of me, bully me, or say words, I will say, excuse me, you need to stop. So the model isn't about me taking all sorts of crap on me. The model is about, no, I'm in control. And basically, I know we were going to talk about this. This is the same as controlling the stream, right? And so what happens is we're all in this fast-flowing stream, the river of life. Now, we're not in different streams. We're in the same stream. COVID's proved that. COVID's proved that. When we get in conflict and we get into problems, we're trying to control the stream. So the whole idea is stop. Stop trying to control the stream. Can we affect the stream? Yes, we can. We can really affect the stream by how we act and interact. That's why, again, being nice, we affect the stream. Here's the key to the model. The key to the model is stop trying to control the stream, but be 100% in control on how you navigate the stream. This isn't going with the flow. That's not what I mean. I'm in control of how I want to navigate my life, my journey through the stream. But I must keep 2 things in mind. Number 1, I do my best not to harm the stream. And number 2, I will not allow, now that's going to be very strong when I say that, I will not allow the stream to harm me. Okay? It's about being in control without being controlling. So I can't control your views, your politics, your religion, anything about you. All I can control is how I act and react to what you do to me. And if I keep the 6 I wills in mind, celebrating your right to be you no matter what, doing no harm to you no matter what, or knowingly, you know, telling you what I need, not what you're doing wrong, coming from a place of if I can, I will, being mutual trust and respect, and walk away and letting go what our interaction was yesterday, so that I'm not carrying it.
So let's elaborate a little bit more about the letting go component, because in the post-pandemic world, we're seeing a lot of mental health challenges, and this has affected all of us in a variety of degrees, and letting go is perhaps one of the mechanisms by separating us from the prior experience and that harm component that's coming into place. So can you tell us a little bit more about that dimension?
Yeah, letting go is, when I developed the model here, at Brock, I noticed when I studied Myers-Briggs, all the other models we have, and in all of our beliefs in sociology, it's stay together. Come on, Ted. You're being too sensitive.
Right.
No, I'm not. Right? So the letting go means it's okay to walk away. It's okay to first walk away from what happened yesterday, but it's also okay to walk away, to leave. Right? So the first thing we have to do is try to walk away mentally, so we don't have to walk away physically. We have people, I'm sure all you viewers, you have people in your life, the way they chew gum pisses you off. It's not their fault. They're chewing gum the way they believe they should chew gum. So you're trying to control the stream by trying to get them to chew gum your way. Okay? One of the analogies I use is ketchup in my coffee. Very simple on how to do this. If I want to put ketchup in my coffee, it's my business.
Okay.
My business is not to force you to put ketchup in your coffee. Nor is your business to stop me from putting ketchup in my coffee. Now, can you say, Ted, I think ketchup in coffee is the stupidest thing in the world. I would never do that. And you can even go as far as saying you're an idiot for doing it, but it's your coffee.
Right.
See what I mean?
Right.
So by walking away mentally of trying to control the other person, the stream, the situation, the stream, but being in control on how you navigate the situation, the stream, or whatever. Make sense?
It does. It does. It's that controlling versus being in control.
Yeah.
And being able to control our own emotions and reactions to it.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. Every day I get annoyed. I want to beat somebody up. So this isn't about singing Kumbaya and, you know, if a bird poops on me right now, I'm annoyed, I'm mad, I'm upset.
Right.
But I'm not going to go kill every bird that I see.
Right.
And I'm not going to make a new law saying birds can't fly in this place.
Right.
So it's keeping it that simple. I'm annoyed, the annoyance goes up, now what? Goes back down, and I move on.
How do we reconcile, if you will, the element of control and influence? So we don't want to control others. We can't, obviously. Yet we do want to be in a position of influencing others in the way that they behave, whether it's the individual, whether it's the policies around it, the rules. So all of these elements stem from that influence component, which is effectively outside of everything that's outside of our control. How does this, the 2% fits in, and the law of cooperative action fits in within the control versus influence component?
Well, I think with that, there are a couple of issues. First, I presume everybody's a 98% part of the 98% until they show me they're 2%.
So the assumption of positive intent.
So most of the time, if I come up to you and I see you're doing something and I say, wow, it looks like you're having trouble with that. Do you need help? So it's getting permission to give you the influence that I think I can have. If you say, no, I'm okay, that's fine, right? Now, what happens if you're not in that mode is if I see you doing something, I'll come up to you and say, you know, you're doing that all wrong. See what I mean?
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, why are you in my space? Why are you telling me I'm doing it all wrong? This is the way I do it. So it's first getting that permission. Secondly, remember I said we can influence the stream. It's how we come into a room. It's how we talk to people.
Right.
It's how we approach people. It's having that smile every day, believe it or not, so that people will come up to you and say, you notice I noticed you. I've got a question. And then you can answer that question. But answering it from the point of, if it was me, this is what I would do.
Right.
Not you should do. Very simple words. But most of us go, you need to, you should, you had better. Instead of, here's what I would do. Right. And that's how to influence it and get people to follow you as well. Because if you're a good leader, you're not doing this.
Right.
A good leader is quieter. A good leader is someone who sits back and watches, but a good leader is also someone you can't walk over. Because I can assure you, if you understand the model, no one will ever walk over you again. The only reason we don't say what we need to say is from fear. And I'm sure you've heard this. Fear is very simple, false evidence appearing real, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Once you find out what the true evidence is, then all of a sudden it's, wow, that wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't that bad at all.
Right.
And yet we're afraid because we're looking at the negative on a regular basis. So even in our view of the world, because we're so programmed to view the world with the 2%,
Right.
we don't view the world with the 98%.
So here's a question from one of our viewers who says, how do you diminish a 2% influence on a broader group, for example, co-workers, committee members, and so on?
It's really not that hard. It's first you have to make it safe. So because I go into corporations and we're in 7 countries. And so I go into corporations, and the first thing you do is you got to make it safe for the 98% to stand up to the 2%. Because usually in that small group, it's 1 or 2 people influencing everybody else. But in a lot of cases, the system has stopped it from, or the system has supported that 2%er. Now, so that's from a working standpoint. Let's say I'm the person going into this room, right? Knowing the model, what I would do is that 2%er becomes a little insignificant. So I will, be assertive but not aggressive.
Right.
And challenge, but not really challenge, but question. So, like, really? This is what you guys are doing? Because I don't care if the 2%er yells at me. Right? Because as long as I'm doing it with a good heart and a good place, and as long as I don't become insulting or a 2%er myself, what's going to happen? And if it's a pervasive workplace, then there's a whole bunch of things you can do. You make sure you take notes. You make sure you have a paper trail. If you're going to challenge the 2%er, watch whatever the imbalance of power is, all of those sorts of things. So it's a little more complicated than that, and it can sometimes take time. But in a group or coworker organization, I don't worry about you guys. I only look after me. The other thing, too, is what we have a tendency to do is we have a tendency to try to save the others.
All right.
That's not my job as a human being. My job is to help influence if they want or need the help.
Okay.
So to go to, I just saw what he did to you. You know what we should do? We should go over to, it's not my job.
Right.
I just saw that. Are you okay? Well, yeah, I'm a little, it's like, well, there are aspects, like you can go to HR or something like that. No, Ted, it's okay. That's who he is. We have a tendency to overreact nowadays, too. We make our 2% or 98% with everything. You insulted me. You offended me. I'm sorry, I said the wrong word. I apologize. But yet what we're doing is we're taking that to a whole new level. So I think if I was part of that committee or that group,
Right.
by understanding the model, and what we've done in workplaces, so let's say there's 20 or 30 people. Everyone gets the concept of the model. We don't care about the 2%er because the 2%er has no one to play with. Because once you understand the model, if the 2%er comes to you to try to do something, sorry, no, I don't want to play with you. Oh, I don't want to play with you. I don't want to play with you. So we've neutralized in the group. Without saying to the 2%er, you need to change. We've just empowered the 98% with the tools on how to neutralize the 2. So in the coffee room, 2%er comes in, well, I don't want to hear it. Abdul, thanks. We're talking about sports, right? Then goes to the next table. Well, excuse me, Abdul, we don't want to talk about that. And so what happens is that's a full neutralization of the 2% with the 98%.
So in that scenario, the 2%er is receiving strong messages that their behavior is not welcomed. So then putting the 2%er hat on and devil's advocate here, what are my choices?
Your choices are you either alter your behavior,
okay,
you leave the organization because the organization now you realize, as well as upper management possibly, that you're not a fit.
All right.
or a little thing on the side of your head goes and you fall over. But because some do, some just have a reaction like, well, the world is all crazy, and you know, and then they go away. Give them a career adjustment. That's all.
So the alteration from what we learned here, I guess, or what we're saying is the 2% are the 2% because of who they are, because of how they are. So that's perhaps innate in them.
100%.
And is that an easy thing to change, or that is what do we typically see? Do we typically see people change, or is it that they change the organization? What typically manifests more?
Okay, here's the key. We don't try to change the 2%.
Right.
Right? So the 2% will be with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And 2% incidents. You'll always have a flat tire. You'll always, something will always happen. So the idea of coming from this place of trying to change the 2%er, forget it. That's again trying to control the stream.
Right.
Instead, offer the 2%ers opportunities by being that person who you were meant to be, and having the 2%er realize they can't affect you. So they will start leaving you alone. The more and more people who understand the concept, then the law of cooperative action takes place, because everybody's cooperating well except for the 2%. That's the hurricane. That's the blight.
So this strategy effectively is an approach of finding them the right fit, but it's also isolating the individuals.
Well, it's behavior. Sorry, it's not isolating the individuals, it's isolating behavior.
Okay.
So for example, again, if we're in a group of 6 or 7 people and one's 2% total jerk, right? But I'm stuck with them. They're either in the family or I'm stuck with them because they're in the team I'm in. Right? So I come into the room and I say, Abdul, you want a coffee? George, you want a coffee? Oh, Gloria, the 2%er, do you want a coffee? Don't isolate them because you become a 2%er.
Right.
Okay, so the idea is to isolate their behavior, to not put up with their behavior. The whole model is about behavior, not about the person, not about gender, race, age, nothing. It is simply behavior. If you alter your behavior around me, knowing the model, you could still be innately a 2%er within you, but if your behavior is not a 2% behavior, let's go have a beer.
Right.
Because I got to let it go on what you did last week.
I want to pick up on another point here that you touched on earlier, and it was, if I can, I will.
Yes.
So if I can accommodate the 2%er, I will.
Of course.
If I can accommodate that behavior, so within that notion, couldn't we accommodate all of those behaviors as part of human beings? And is it more around what I can or what I'm willing? How do we make that distinction?
So the actual tenet number 4 on the model says you're always looking for a balance and equilibrium to create cooperative action without losing sense of self. Okay?
Right.
So the if I can, I will means no matter what, I'm going to come from a place of if I can, I will.
Yeah.
But I will never lose my sense of self.
Right.
Now, society and other models try to tell you where your sense of self is. Our way of being tells us what our sense of self is, but the problem is we believe that's your sense of self too. We can't. So in the model, you cannot define somebody else's sense of self. In other words, we've had discussions. How could you put up with that in your household? I put up with it, right? So everybody has their own line in the sand that they have to figure out. Now, once you figure out where your line in the sand is, then you can come from a place of if I can, I will, right? Because you'll know what that line in the sand is. For example, smoking for me. If I was smoking, actually this is a good analogy, I haven't used this in a while, but smoking. So I was a smoker. I quit 47 years ago. And my whole family was a smoker, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, by the way, a plug, just so people can understand. Valentine's Day next week, I'm going to be 75. I know I look good.
Congratulations.
Thanks. 75. 3/4 of a century.
Wow.
Can you believe that? Anyway, so I was a smoker, brought up in a time of smokers because I was born in 48. Everybody smoked. And my dad died of inoperable lung cancer. So smoking, I don't like smoking, don't like to be near smoking, don't like to smell it, don't like to be near people smoking. If you were a friend of mine and you were a smoker, my job isn't saying, "Oh, you're smoking again, you're going to kill yourself." You know, that's not my job.
Right.
My job is, you can't smoke in my house. You can't smoke, you know, on my balcony, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? But if you're a smoker, smoke.
Right.
Right? Go outside.
Right.
Okay? If I was going to be in a position where I was dating somebody, and let's say I was interested in them in a room, and I go, "Oh, wow, looks interesting." So you go to the, you know, and as soon as the person said, "Oh, well, I've got to go and goodbye."
Right.
So my line in the sand is that.
Walk away and let it go.
I walk away and let it go, and I let the person go. The other thing is alcohol. I don't mind a good buzz, and most people, but I don't like a really bad drunk. So if I'm at a party or someone invites me to a party where there's a really bad drunk, my job, again, isn't to say to the host of the party, "I can't believe you invited that person here." If that person is really annoying me, I don't care about everybody else. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Annoying me, then I will turn around and say, "Listen, thanks for the party, Abdul. I'm on my way. I'm going to go."
Walk away and let it go.
Walk away and let it go.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I need to give you a lecture on who you invite to your party.
So you're walking away. I just want to make this go back to the piece around. So walking away, okay, the physical action of moving away.
Right.
What some people are finding difficult, but especially more so in the post-COVID world, where we've had this heightened era of exposure to fear.
Right.
Right. And then so our fight, flight, freeze elements kicking in. The letting go piece appears to be harder for some.
Very difficult.
And more so, that's what's causing the challenges with the heightened mental health issues that we're seeing. It's about, you know, are we reminiscing too much? Whatever that may be. So the letting go part.
It is very difficult for people. Louise Fletcher said it this way: "I'm doing what I should have done years ago, was to find out who I am and what I want. I want to make decisions through choice, not duty. It has to be better for me, the people who love me, and the people I love." So once we realize we have a choice to walk away or not, we have a choice to be in the relationship or not, then we're not controlling the stream anymore. We're controlling how we navigate the stream. Yes, it's difficult. It's not easy to say to a parent or a sibling or somebody who is in your life and say, "Listen, this is becoming toxic right now for me. I'm not saying you need to change, but for me, this is toxic.
Right.
So I'm going to walk away." And again, not easy.
Right.
Very difficult.
So this is where you get into the element of controlling versus being controlled.
That's right.
And controlling the stream. So going with the flow up to a point, but also knowing where your sense of balance and comfort is.
Exactly. And once you understand what your toxicity levels are, as in tenet number 4, then I'm very clear about my boundaries, which is tenet number 3, which we haven't really gotten into, but my boundaries.
Right.
So, for example, if you called me up, and I'll give everybody a hint. If someone calls you up and says, "What are you doing Saturday?" Don't say nothing. Say why.
Okay.
There's a part in the model about being proactive, not reactive, too. So say why. "Well, I'm going to be moving."
Isn't that suspicious if you ask someone why?
No.
You're not answering their question.
Because I'm in control. If I turn around and say, so why? What's up? Right? Friendly. Well, I'm moving. Okay. So I'd be very happy to help you move on one condition. We have a moving truck and everything's packed. I'll move things, but I will not help you pack. If I walk into your house and there's still stuff that needs to pack, or you got your father's pickup truck and you're moving 12 loads in a pickup truck, count me out. Now, here's the key. Most of us are afraid to say that boundary of "this is what I need to be in relationship with you for this specific thing."
Right.
Because we're afraid of what you're going to say. Now, if you're a true friend of mine and you're part of the 98%, you'll laugh and you'll say, "Ted, I understand. I know who you are. I understand." And if you're not, and you go crazy, that, "Well, I've helped you and you," what's that just tell you? That you're a 2%er, and I don't want to spend a day I can't get this hour and a half back.
Right.
So I'm going to make sure that I spend it the way I want to.
Right.
That also doesn't mean that I just walk into a room and say, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. No, because tenet number 2 is you should be able to do anything you want as long as you don't knowingly harm. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if this is really important to you and you're a really good friend of mine and you know what my boundaries are, and say, yeah, Ted, I know we're going to, but listen, we'll do our best. Please, I need your help. I've got nobody else to help you. The decision is still mine. And more than likely, I'll say, yeah, I'll come over.
So boundaries, it seems such a word where, it feels like, borders, boundaries. They seem hard and fast at times, but also arbitrary in cases. But that's probably not what life is. Life, although has boundaries, and as we grow and go through life, probably our boundaries move as well.
100%. Tenet number 3 talks about all relationships are based on a constant negotiation of boundaries by using respectful, direct, and honest communication in order to bring a clear understanding of our interaction. Because we have to understand the interaction. There are some times when so I never say never, right? So there are times when I will put myself in a position of being very uncomfortable or not really wanting to do something because I know that's very important to a really good friend of mine in a really good relationship.
Right. I think we only have time for one last area to focus on. Let me turn this to you and let the audience hear from you as to what would be the one thought that you want to leave them walking away from today's session.
I think the biggest thing is to realize that the 2%ers exist. Realize that your job is not to change them, fight them, or anything like that. The key is how to make sure that you're neutralizing their effect on you. The whole model is about me and how I act and react to what's happening. It's not about the stream. It's not about anything else. It's about how I act and react to what's happening. And so I would leave them with that. And it's about behavior. It's not about a person. So sometimes there's a person that could have been a 2%er yesterday to me who is now a good friend of mine. Because I didn't try to change them, but I understood them. And they altered their behavior in order to accommodate my needs as well. So that's the cooperative action, the law of cooperative action. Mm-hmm. I altered a bit. They altered a bit. We are now in cooperative action. We understand each other, and we can work together.
Fantastic. Ted, it has been great having you here and learning more about the 2% factor. When I first heard it, it was catchy. It got me, and I didn't understand it enough. And when I delved more into it, the more I looked into it, the more I liked it. So thank you very much for being here and for letting us learn a little bit more about what you do and also the law of cooperative action and the 2% factor.
Thank you. It's great being here.
Goodman Group is a community-focused learning and development services provider that works to support professionals and businesses pursuing growth through professional development certificate programs, executive educations, and consulting services. Goodman Group is pleased to share with you our latest offering, which you can see on the slide that I'm sharing here. In this particular instance, we're looking at the Professional Leadership Development Certificate Program, which is scheduled for May and June. It is a work and life and home life friendly schedule of 1 to 4. It is available and delivered both in person or online. And all of these instructor-led sessions are led by our award-winning faculty members or leading industry experts. For more questions about this program, reach out to the team at prodev@brocu.ca. That's PRODV@brocu.ca. Also, Goodman Group is pleased to offer a specific program that is designed specifically for the nonprofit sector. The intent of this program is to equip the nonprofit leaders with their day-to-day aspects of what they need to do and to get job done. We know that nonprofit sector individuals and leaders are often having to put multiple hats on and do sort of what they need to do with really tight purses and budgets to work from. So this program specifically has been designed with the aid of nonprofit leaders in and around Niagara and the GTA, and the program is designed to be delivered also in a hybrid format. It will be starting at 4 in the afternoon, close to the end of the day, or after the work, the end of the day, 4 to 7 in May and June. And for more information, you can reach to the team here at Goodman Group using prodev@brocu.ca. So that's PRODV @brocu.ca. Well, that is all that we have time for today's session. I do want to take this time to thank everyone who tuned into the live session, and for those who are watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to watch this session. You can take the time as well here to let us know how did we do. We always want to hear from you, our viewers, in terms of the things that have gone well, but also the topics that you might like to see in the future as well. Joining us next week, next time rather, is Rajiv Jahangiani, who's a professor of psychology and education here at Brock University, but also and also the vice provost of education and students here at Brock University. His topic is leveraging open educational resources to advance your organizational goals. So look forward to seeing all of you there next time. That is on Wednesday, March 8th at 11. Until then, stay safe.